Have I ever talked about my daffodil thing? Have I ever talked about this? I feel like I
No.
probably have.
Maybe.
I'm sure.
I don't know.
I'm going to talk about it again. So everybody,
Tell me.
I live in Hyde Park, which is the Chicago neighborhood on the south side, and I work up Lakeshore Drive. So I drive on Lakeshore Drive every day, which is very nice because it's very beautiful. But in the spring, they have huge beds of like daffodils, and it's my favorite thing. And I also keep track on my phone of like what day the daffodils come up because I'm curious about it like from year to year. And I've been doing this for like 10 years now. And I'm like, it's a little early this year. I suppose some years it's like later in April. Sometimes it's earlier. It's kind of right in the middle. But it is really pretty. And so you just drive up. And I mean, I'm talking, I don't know how big these beds are, but some of them are just like, I don't even know. It must be 1,000 daffodils, right? And some of them are like up on like a embankment in a big like arch shape. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
I've never seen photographs of it, nor have I taken them because, of course, I'm going by at 60 miles an hour.
But it's nice.
It is nice.
I mean, since we're talking about spring and flowers, as you know, I have a little, we live in Brooklyn, but we do have a little like garden at the front of our house. And I filled it in the fall. I was very organized and I filled it with 40 tulip bulbs. And now they are all coming up in all, and I like specifically bought like a million colors.
I love it.
And so they're all popping up.
I love tulips too.
And it's actually really nice because on my block, there aren't that many gardens. Like there are a lot of people. I live in an area of Brooklyn where like a lot of people decided at some point that like concrete was nice. They just paved over everything. Real like, you know, paved paradise, put up a parking lot kind of vibe. For some reason, the people who own my house did not do that. And so now I have like 40 tulips growing.
That's nice. Yeah. Tulip season is here is also really awesome. So it is a nice time of year. I'm excited.
I'm at a house that's like a little chaotic. We have a little free library where we like we are the odd people out on the block. Like we have a little free library. We have all these tulips. But what's really nice is like when little kids walk by, we're the house where like the mom says, "Oh, look at these pretty flowers."
Yeah, right. Nice.
And the kids like to look at it.
Cute.
And then in the fall, it gets very chaotic because everything goes to seed and like my wild garden becomes just like overrun with everything because I have not weeded because I don't like to. Not because I shouldn't, just because I don't like to.
Sure. There are lots of things I don't like to do. No shame here.
So my daughter's like every fall, my daughter's like, you know that like everybody on the block probably just thinks you're a witch because you have like, and I was like, listen, everybody on the block thinks I'm a witch. That works out well for me with my chaotic garden and my little free library. Putting ideas into the world.
The best thing about this is like all the people who live in the South right now are like, what are you guys talking about? It was spring here 6 weeks ago.
Yep. Well, you're enjoying it for like one more week and then you're going to be complaining about allergies.
Did you send it to me? Somebody sent it to me and it was like a picture of like a car. I think it was in like South Carolina or North Carolina, just covered in pollen. Someone had like written in it with their finger, "Send Zyrtec." That's very real.
Well, because I think we have talked about this, but like that it is a real problem in cities because we have definitely talked about this because in urban planning, they plant male trees. And so we're all fucked by the pollen. Fucked by the patriarchy one way or another, everybody. So today...
Do you want to introduce us on the podcast, Sarah?
Oh, right. Welcome to Fated Mates, everyone. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
And I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor.
And a couple things we want to talk about. First of all, housekeeping-wise, if you haven't filled out the survey, you should fill out the survey.
Correct.
This is your chance to tell us how we can, how you listen, how you'd like to listen, what you'd like us to do next as we're thinking about season 8 of this podcast. Crazy. Can't believe you all still listen to us.
We're going to keep going forever, though, because it brings me a lot of joy. And especially now I need it.
It does. So you can find that at fatedmates.net/survey. Easy peasy. And it shouldn't take you longer than 10 minutes to fill it out. It's very fast. And what else? Oh, let's talk about Pagebound, which is so fun.
It is really fun. Yeah, I love it.
I started using it like last night.
It's so cute.
It's so cute. Eric and I went out last night and I was like, okay, Pagebound is a website that's fully for readers.
Yeah.
Like it's reader community building. And it's kind of great because you're not like, it is reviews and it is community. It's like sort of a nice like mix of two things, but everybody on there is like feels really tight knit and lovely. So we partnered with Pagebound to build what they call a quest. So you can go to pagebound.co, or you can just Google Pagebound, and then you set up a little profile. You pick a little avatar. Like it's all very
really cute. Yeah.
And you can just select books that you're reading. You can basically build shelves, just like all the other, reading apps. So unlike Goodreads and Storygraph, which are great tools to like keep your own shelf, etc., Pagebound is more like building a community.
Correct. Like the conversation and the talking back and forth, etc. Yeah.
Right. It feels more like a social app. So one of the cool things that we've done is we've partnered with Pagebound, and now you can go there and there's something called a quest. If you follow Faded Mace, you can follow our quest, which is basically all of the deep dive books that we've done. So if you read, I don't know what the number is. I think it's like 15 of the deep dive books, then you get a gold medal in the quest.
Adorable.
Now, listen, immediately when we launched this, a bunch of people on the Discord were like, we deserve bigger medals. There should be better medals if we've read all of them. We hear
the
you.
Magnificent
You're all
Firebird,
overachievers.
the
we get
Magnificent
it.
Firebird medal. It's in your heart, everyone.
And so that's really fun. Like you can do that, and then you can like post the book that you're reading and like write a little couple sentence review or a couple sentences. There's always an option to add 3 emojis that you felt while you were reading the book. It's just really a cute little back and forth. And then like when you click a book, you can see reviews from other members. And because the community is so small, it really helps you like find other people.
Sure. Right. And that's also the kind of the cool thing. There's like a lot of us now. So it feels kind of, it's fun.
Yeah, it's neat. And I mean, I said to Eric last night, I was like, I'm a little worried that like now Faded Mates is like dominating Pagebound. Like we've come and now here we all are. But you know what? As he pointed out, look, there are worse groups of people to be dominating a website. Like we're all pretty decent and like we just want to talk about our books, everyone.
And like it is in as many places as possible. So yeah, it's just like it's a cool different vibe than just like a straight tracking app. And whatever works for you. I think a lot of us have like multiple I have multiple places I talk about my books. So very fun.
Yeah.
So everybody, the other really cool thing Eric has, and I love this. Eric has created a place for people to submit essentially collections of their own microtropes or like, kind of like collections of books that they think that go together. And the part about this is, as we all can kind of tell, now that slop is taking over the internet, it's really hard to find things. And we have really, the discoverability, buddy, we've taken to heart. And so the cool title is, it's like, Faded Mates Collections Department. And it's basically like, book recommendations by real people. And it's not just us, right? It's authors, it's listeners, right? So we have collections from Andy J. Christopher and from B in her books, which is, she's like a super romance reader and a librarian. Alexandra Harvey, who's an author, Rachel Griffiths and Alice Murphy and M.A. Wardell are also authors. Your friend Shane, who's just
she's a PhD. She's a professor of food studies
right.
at NYU.
And she made one about like historicals where people are into food or whatever, right? So it's
called Hungry Historicals, by the way, which classic. That's why I'm friends with Shane. Now you know.
And I was like, Eric, are you making up these really fun titles? And so then what happens is you go.
He's not. You all. The
person
people
is
are making
oh my
them.
God, amazing. And so you go and you can just sort of look and like B made one all about heroes with mustaches. And so these are, and like M.A. Wardell, who wrote one about, and this one's really sweet. Like he wrote one about, they're all gay romances where like one of the men takes care of children or is a father. And it's like, so it's like about daddies, but like real daddies. And these are so cute. And I honestly am obsessed because it is really hard sometimes to find books on a topic you want, or like you're like, I love this book. What are other ones? So it's really also fun if you're just like, what do I want to read? It's like a really fun way to sort of like get some great new ideas.
So you can see that if you go to fatedmates.net, it's right there on the main page. You can just click collections. And that's slowly populating. Like we have people adding all the time. So look, we got a lot of fun stuff going on over here. We had a meeting. And now look what happens. Page bound, collections department, who knows what else. Survey.
The only collections department you really want to hear from.
I do just want to shout out Kim Only Reads Romance, who is on Instagram and Threads and maybe other places. But Kim is the person who called us Discoverability Buddies, and we are very proud to know her.
Yeah.
And actually, I asked Kim if she'd like to do a collection, and she is going to deliver one to us.
I love it. Okay, so Sarah, I'm really excited about today's topic.
Me too. Man on the run.
Well, it's over now. Sarah has sung. You know, it's funny because both of us, I think, really enjoy romantic suspense, but it has, I don't know that we've ever done a whole episode on it. And this isn't really a romantic suspense episode, but really the idea is Sarah's like, it's just like On the Run. And I was like, wait, you mean like people running marathons? And she was like, no, dummy. I mean,
no. I mean, if that's sexy to you.
Sure. But in this case, we just mean really like romantic suspense. People on the move. Someone's after them. There's bad guys. Things crashed.
No nipple chafing.
I don't even know what to say about that.
No proposals at mile 18.
No.
Not one.
No. Dead bodies, serial killers, all that kind of stuff. Actually,
what's interesting is I had, like, when I made the list, I of course sat down and I made like a list of like the 10 books that we talk about all the time that have this in it.
Run, Posey, run.
Thank you. That's on mine too. And then I was like, okay, now I got to get into it. And then I had a really fun time.
I did too.
Collecting a variety of options of what we mean when we say on the run.
Yeah. No, me too. So it was really fun. And I also read a bunch of new books, including a couple. Listen, I am my own discoverability buddy because 2 of the books that I'm going to talk about today were on our spring reads episode a couple weeks ago, like our preview. And I was like, you know what? I picked this book because it looks good. Maybe I should
really
read it.
Interesting. I went back. So I have like some from years ago that I never really. So, all right. Well, what should we start with the classics?
Let's start with some classics.
With the ones that like longtime Fated Mates listeners have heard us talk about before. But I think we should talk about, before we do this, I think we should talk about why On the Run works so well. I mean,
yeah.
So we did an episode about ticking clocks.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously like when you're talking about a classic structure with On the Run, there's the sense of like these people are trying to either escape something or outrun something, like not get caught. So we sort of naturally know we're in a ticking clock situation. Like,
right.
They can't run forever.
No, exactly. I also think the thing for me that was really interesting as I was reading these is you're not going to be bored, right? I mean,
you're definitely not going to be bored.
And, as someone who like loves an action movie, when these are effective, it's like reading an action movie, right? So one of the other things I really like about it is you get the sense of, I mean, and like remember in the movie Speed where she's like people who meet under intense circumstances, it never works out. Mm-hmm. In these books, you're like, okay, but it is going to work out for these guys. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that is also part of it is you really see what people are made of. Like, right, you're testing their mettle. But I think the other thing that I found really interesting is in a lot of these, it's kind of like this question of like one of them is a more suited for On the Run, right? One of them is a CIA agent or, you know what I mean? Something like that. And so I didn't really have a lot of them where like 2 nobodies are on the run, right? Like one of them is like, don't worry, I know how to handle myself. And the other one's like, okay, but not me. And so
Yeah.
then you get like, there's, I think, a caretaking element that sort of comes into play with some of these.
Yep.
And I think that that is also pretty appealing. Right. Because it's kind of that idea that like, here's a person at a really high stress time. And the other one's like, don't worry, I got you.
Yep.
Right. And that
Absolutely. I think there's also the sort of other bucket of On the Run is secrets.
Yes.
Right? Like one character has a secret and the other characters do not know what that secret is. And so like at some point, the shit is going to hit the fan because the secret is going to out. And then everyone is going to be thrown into chaos. So obviously that exists strongly in these books, especially and there is a like through line in a lot of romantic suspense with that structure. But you know, like our first season, we did Cressley Cole's books, and obviously there are definitely IAD books that do this, but I think Cressley's book that I immediately think of for On the Run is The Master, right? So The Master is a great example of like, she has a big secret that she is keeping from the hero throughout the book. And at the end, like, it all comes home as like a little bit of romance. There's like a thread of romantic suspense. There's a threat. And also like it clubs the hero over the side of the head when he realizes that he sort of had an inkling that she had a secret, but he is not aware of like how serious that secret is. And I mean, I won't get too deep into The Master because we did a deep dive on it and we've talked about it before, but like that moment at the end when she picks up the phone and she calls him because she doesn't have anybody else to call and she is literally against the wall.
That's
right?
the best.
Like it is the moment of like the climactic moment of this book is perfect.
It is. Yeah. This is my favorite of that series. And I think that's a big part of it, right? Because I think the other part that's really interesting about On the Run is in order for it to work at some point, they have to be not on the run, right? Like you have to stop.
Yep.
And so it's interesting because this book sort of inverts that. Like she has been on the run essentially on her own, right? And then
he sort of keeps her.
And then he sort of, kidnaps her. And then she's like living in the penthouse. And it's just
it's like kidnapping.
Oh, it's a little like
it's not
kidnapping.
Like kidnapping.
Yeah. So when Kat essentially is like, now I get, and she actually says to herself, like, you know what, he can't get me here. This man who's after me, right? She's someone's after her.
Because it's really nice when you're kidnapped by a billionaire who's got bodyguards everywhere. If I had to choose.
Sure. And so it's a really fascinating, sort of look at all of that. But I think, I love that book. It's terrific. But so, it's like a lot of the book is her at rest, but knowing that she's going to have to be on the run again. And then like the question is like, can I trust this man? She eventually decides no, but then she changes her mind. Yes, when she has no other choice. And it's an awesome ending. But I think the other part I wanted to talk about was like competence, which is kind of like, and I think, again, for it to work, like I said, one of them already starts out as being real competent. One of them can already do a bunch of things often, right? Or has like the money to make things happen. But I think the other part about this that typically works for me in these books is that the one who's not that, the one who's not the Navy SEAL or the CIA agent or whatever, discovers like hidden reserves of strength in themselves.
Yes.
And almost always at some point, whatever they are good at is going to like save the day. Right. So I think like a really fun part of this, does that make sense? Like you see them kind of being like, I can't do that thing, but I can do this thing. Yep. And therefore like something about that ends up being really key to their survival. And I think that's just like a really fun part of it. And I think that's probably happens more in romance than it does in just like straight up thrillers, right?
Yeah.
So, this scaredy cat who, is just an interpreter or whatever is going to like, at some point do something real smart. And I like that too.
One of the things I was sort of dancing around is like, is it possible to split all On the Run books into two buckets, which are moving and not moving? Meaning like the book is them literally running
Yeah.
and moving around and escaping whatever is chasing them. Or the book is, this is the first time they have stopped.
Yeah. I think that's the case too. And it's funny because I didn't come up with a lot of those just because I read a lot of books that were just like, we're literally on the move. But I was really kept thinking like another version of this. And I think you hit the nail on the head here with the master is the like, she's on the run. She's changed her identity, right? She has a new name and is living in a new town or whatever. And danger comes to town, right? Essentially to find her. And it almost, I will say, is always the case that like, this is her. And then, you know, whoever it is, it's going to sort of like swoop in to like be the person that she can now count on as opposed to putting her in danger, someone who's going to help her be safe. But yeah, I do think that there's a lot of those too.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by S.E. McPherson, author of A King's Trust.
So if you are a romanticy girly and you are really interested in polyamorous romance, this is the book for you. So what happens is Beau's brother is the prince and he dies, and he was set to inherit the throne, and nobody is happy about the fact that now Beau is next in line to take over the throne. The king and queen are horrified and they really want Beau to marry, and the woman they have picked out for him is essentially his late brother's fiance, Lady Penamore. And she believes that Beau is the one who murdered his brother. And so all of a sudden we have lots of angsty drama. And Beau is the least happy person of all because he would rather risk his life as a common sailor before wearing a crown. But, you know, he's trapped. This is what it means to be born into a royal family.
Poor baby.
Only Elias, his royal guard, and his loyal guard, and also someone Beau is desperately in love with,
Oh boy.
is the one who he feels like he can trust. But as Beau reshapes the nobility and carves out a life for himself in the palace, he'll need to draw upon an ancient magic, unlikely allies, and Elias maybe as a third to this situation in the royal bedroom. So failure means dooming his kingdom and succumbing to the same force that took his brother's life. So he has no choice but to make it work.
Oh boy, if you love a polyamorous fantasy romance with enemies to lovers and royal bodyguard vibes, this one is going to be perfect for you. It's the first of a trilogy available in print and ebook. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to S.E. McPherson for sponsoring this week's episode. You know what, Jen? We never read Run, Posey, Run as a deep dive.
We did not. That's true.
And that feels like crazy to me because we talk about it so much.
Yeah.
But that was on my list. It was on your list too. And that's interesting because she's on the run from
Him.
the hero. And that's the only one on my list where she's on the run from the hero. No, it's not. I have a second one.
Yes, and right. So in Run, Posey, Run, Posey is our heroine. And basically at the beginning, she's been kind of the live-in girlfriend of this like mobster. And she knows that she's also like a mafia girl. Like her father had run into trouble. She's kind of on the outside of that world in some way. But then like once she got together with Dario, she like was kind of fine. And then what happens at the beginning is Dario essentially gets set up by his boss to believe that Posey has cheated on him. And he throws her out and has his like body man like take her and get rid of her. Like not kill her, get rid of her. Just like drop her off at downtown and she's done. And it's the driver who's like, you're in danger because the boss is not Dario, right? Dario's boss is going to kill you.
Right.
And so she's on the run essentially from both of them. Like the real danger isn't Dario. It's the overboss, right? But then Dario really quickly figures out like, I want her back, but she's already gone. And then his like desperation to find her is really terrific. And she knows it. And she figures out a way. She sets up essentially something like an OnlyFans and like sends it directly to him and is essentially like extorting money from him. Like, and he's like, come home. And she's like, no, give me $1,000. It's fucking great. And eventually he finds her, right, and brings her back home. And then like sort of the rest of the book is them figuring out how to vanquish the boss who like has put her in danger and to figure out kind of like why that was happening. It's terrific because like her running from Dario is an emotional thing. Like he didn't trust her, he didn't believe her.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual threat to her life, though, is from this other guy. So it's really smart, I think, too, in the way that it is set up. But yeah, it's a dark romance. Like, you know, Daria finds her and throws her in a trunk. You definitely have to like know that going in. But it is great, and it's I think a pretty perfect romance.
It's also just like a really terrific setup. Like, she's running from him it's tricky, right? That tee up is really difficult because I think it feels like within the last like 20 episodes, I've talked about Anna Campbell's Claiming the Courtesan, which I think is like one of the greatest, like it's a primordial dark romance. Like anybody who loves dark romance would love this historical. And the premise there is she is like one of the most famous courtesans in London, and she's been claimed by this duke who is like kind of ruthless he takes, like he's a man who takes. And she has been saving money, we know, for like reasons. And at the beginning of this book, she's done. Like she has collected enough money and like she is piecing out. And he is enraged when she leaves him. And she runs. And then he catches her and like kidnaps her to his like North Scotland castle. When it came out, it was real scandalous. It was a book that people felt very strongly about. But it goes back to what you were saying, so I think the hallmark of those books is the heroine, and obviously for me, like this is true of all books that I love, but like in those books especially, the heroine has got to have like spine of steel.
Correct. Yeah.
For it to work.
And I think in Run Posey Run, for sure, like I think part of the thing that's so amazing about it is this Posey is very honest with herself about like who she is, where she comes from, and what that means for the kind of life she can have.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why it works, right? Like she knows, she is far more aware of the like minutia of like what it means to be essentially a mobster's woman, right? In that life for her and what that means. And I think, you know, when she leaves, I don't think she ever comes back, but thinks she's going to come back. But when she comes back, she's like, I'm going to make this different. I think it's pretty remarkable in that sense too. Like, right. Like it's right. Like this changed my life, but now I get to change my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. It's great.
Do you have other classics?
I don't know if I would call it a classic, but I guess so. I have one more, which
Fated Maid's classic.
Well, then I would not call it a Fated Maid's classic because I'm not sure I've talked about it before. But we have talked about the first two books in Molly O'Keefe's Everything I Left Unsaid series, right?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of this.
Yeah,
those are on the run.
Sure, but I think the whole series is really on the run. But in the third book, which is Burn Down the Night, which is really great. At the end of book 2, right? At the end of The Truth About Him, Joan, and Max is Dylan's brother, and he has been injured or shot. I can't remember exactly the nature of the injury. And Joan, who has been sort of like this, like really like kind of remarkable presence in Annie's life, right? This woman who's like real strong, essentially like puts him in the back for a car and it's like, don't worry, I'll take care of him. And what happens is we realize is Joan is actually been searching for her sister, who essentially has been not kidnapped necessarily, but like kind of taken by a cult. And Joan is like, I am going to do everything I can to get my sister back. And she thinks that Max knows something about it. And Max is on the run from his like brothers and his motorcycle club. And so basically, Joan's like, I'm going to help him. But really, kind of what she does is kidnap him. And she takes him to her aunt's house, who is like lives in some retirement community, like in Florida, but her aunt's a nurse. And she chains Max to her bed.
Perfect.
And is basically like, until I figure out what you know about how I can find my sister, you're not going anywhere. And the sex between them is so hot. And like at one point, Joan goes out and picks up a woman who's just been recently widowed and brings her back and like has sex with her in front of Max, who is chained to the bed. Ooh, it's hot, you guys. It's real hot. And so I think the thing that's also really interesting about this book, you know, it was probably written in the late 20 teens, is this is not like a dark romance, right? Like Max, even though he is a criminal, right, has done bad things, is on a full redemption arc. He's going to walk away from that. He is going to change his life. He just wants to be with Joan. No matter what that takes, he's never, he sort of also views it as like it also changes his life, right? And I think the thing I also really like about talking about Burn Down the Night here is Joan is just like a really singular romance heroine. She's unbelievably great. But I also liked that a lot of these books are kind of like not damsel in distress exactly, but I think they often kind of traffic in he's the CIA agent, Navy SEAL, whatever, and she's just like the regular person
just
in danger.
Like a lady.
Yeah. And I really liked that Joan was the one firmly in the driver's seat and in the handcuffing seat and in the let me bring a lady back and show you what I can do to her seat.
Perfect.
Burn Down the Night. It's awesome.
I just want to name check Dragonbound, another one where the heroine is on the run from the hero. And that is, we did a deep dive on it. And I mean, it's a perfect, like, this is a perfect example of like an alpha hero who is just fully wrong from the beginning.
But in that great way. Yes.
I love it. And the tee up for this, again, you can go listen. We loved it so much, we did a deep dive of it. But the tee up to this is that for romance reasons, the heroine is tasked with stealing from the dragon's hoard. And she goes in and she's not a thief. So she is like, I will steal 1 penny. And
so perfect.
She takes 1 penny from his hoard and leaves. It's like, take a penny, leave a penny. She leaves one of her own pennies with a little note that says, like, I'm sorry.
Sorry I had to do this.
But I had no choice. And then she leaves and he is so enraged.
It's so
that
perfect.
This woman, that somebody has broken into his hoard, that he has no choice but to chase her down.
No choice,
into
really.
fairyland.
Correct.
It's so fun. He's great.
Yeah, it is great.
And then wait, I have one more, and that is, and I talk about it all the time, but Joanna Shupe's Tycoon, which is heroine who is a perfume girl in the Gilded Age, witnesses a bad thing and has no choice but to run from bad guys to Grand Central Station, where she leaps onto a train. This might be my favorite microtrope.
Leaping on a train?
No. The way that this book goes is she runs right from the department store where she's a perfume counter girl, and she runs to Grand Central Station, and she is like, she knows that they are chasing her. They are literally chasing her down the train platform. And there is a very handsome man standing outside of the train, and she runs into his arms and says, "Kiss me." And he does, because he knows the job.
If I must.
And then he kisses her and they get on the train. And it turns out she's in the private rail car of the president of the Bank of New York.
Who knows how to kiss?
No notes. And they're on their way to St. Louis. What will they do for that time?
Yeah, I think the key thing here is definitely like the danger, right? Like this isn't just a road trip,
You
everybody.
gotta
There's got to
be
be,
moving.
yeah, right?
There has to be a threat.
Okay, do you have any more like
All right.
classic ones?
Those are all the ones that we have like talked about a lot.
Okay, wait, I have one more. Something Wilder by Christina Lauren, right?
Oh.
Because
I get that's an interesting one because they're on the run
kind of to
by
find
choice.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it, but I do think the danger part of it, there is like I think the danger part of it is like it's not really a road trip, right? Like someone has died, right? Like they are after something that feels like the timing of it is really urgent. You know what I mean? I definitely feel like there's like some chasing and stuff. I mean, I don't know. Like it definitely doesn't have the like I'm personally in danger, like someone's here to kill me, but it definitely does feel like really high stakes. I think that's why
Yeah.
I was thinking of it. Okay. All right. So now we want to talk about some new ones. So I'm going to talk about the new May Marvel book, which is If I Told You I'd Have to Kiss You, which
Adorable.
is great.
Adorable.
And it is about this is a great setup, everybody. Okay. So in this, it's essentially two spies who work for the CIA. One of them's name is Yardley Whitmer, and she's like the super spy. Like she's the one who's like on the ground and, pulling guns out and like, questioning people and running down alleys and stuff. Mm-hmm. And her code name is Unicorn. And the other heroine is Casey Nolan, who is like the tech support person. And her name is Tabasco. And I'm okay, everybody, secretly, it is my belief, I have no proof or evidence for this, that what they're really trying, like it's a symbol to you, Tabasco. This book is spicy and unicorn horny. You heard it here first. This book's spicy and horny. Okay. Anyway, spicy and horny are, so they like work together in this way. Now, here's the other part of this. Here's what they don't know. This is the part that's really fun. These two have been living together for years and each keeping a secret from the other that they work from the CIA. So they don't know.
That's terrific. It's like Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Correct. Exactly. And so what happens at the beginning is they figure it out really fast. They've broken up and then they because, they can tell that the thrill is gone and something's missing and they're not really able to tell each other the truth. And then they really quickly at the beginning, it's sort of revealed and then they have to go on a big assignment together. And so it's like globe hopping on the run, right? So, and what happens is there is a weapon that could essentially like wipe out, like it's like a, it could like wipe out all the electricity in a place, right? Like essentially turn it all down somewhere. And this is real dangerous. And it turns out that Casey has actually had a hand in making it and her handler is missing. And so now she's been passed off to someone else and they are on the run to try and figure out what's going on. So they are in like Stockholm and they're in all these places and people are chasing them and they have to get back to, the States or go on to the next place. The part that I like about it in terms of on the run is I think there's a couple really smart things. One is there's this tension kind of between like who's in charge of the mission, right? Yardley is like the super spy, but Casey knows more about like what's happening in terms of like the weapon. So there's like this sort of like handling back and forth. But I also think what's really smart is because they already know each other, there's this whole business in the book about like, now we're getting to know each other a different way. Are we going to be able through the like crucible of this mission, like reshape all of the bad patterns that we were in? There's also one of my other favorite parts about this book. So Yardley is like a second generation spy and she tells this really great story about how her grandfather was a spy and her grandmother didn't know. And so for years, for decades, he was going out on missions and the whole entire time, but this is like, the grandparents, the grandmother, Nana, thought that he was cheating on her. And when he retired and finally told her, like, no, I've been a spy, she kicks him out of the fucking house.
Nice.
And she's like, that's garbage. And then divorces him And then the minute it's done, essentially shows up and is like, why don't you court me? But this time as who you really are. And so Yardley, this is one of my favorite scenes in this book, and I don't want to spoil it because it's really sweet, is like talking to her grandmother and basically is like, Casey has been a spy the whole time. And her grandmother's like, you didn't clock that? She was chatting with our gardener in Portuguese, and she is like super strong and like all this stuff. It was really, really cute.
That's
like
funny.
Yardley, the spy who can read anybody, couldn't read her own girlfriend. Right. So this is a really fun On the Run where they are both like sort of like taking turns being in charge of On the Run. And it's, they have to find out who's responsible and all this. It's great. So that is If I Told You I'd Have to Kiss You by May Marvel. And I'm also going to tell you, I don't think it's out yet. So sorry, everybody. It comes out in June.
Well, now we all have to wait for it.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Michelle McCraw, author of Conspiracies and Chemistry.
So Tessa, our heroine, is 43 years old and a former tech founder who is now a philanthropist. And she is in hiding, in plain sight. She doesn't have a great relationship with her family. She does have friends, but she really keeps it tight and like closed up everything. She has an apartment that she doesn't really allow to be public. She has a lot of secrets that she's never allowed anybody to have access to. And she's hired at some point early in this book to rescue a troubled biomedical research company whose founder and chief scientist, Oliver, who happens to be like a sexy nerd who's slightly younger than her, he is pursuing a piece of cancer research that could actually really like make enormous change in the world. So Tess and Oliver are working together. They need each other in order to do this really important work. And they know that whatever they are feeling, if they let it impact them and it gets into their work, it could damage both their relationship and this kind of larger thing that they're working on, which is much more important, arguably, than both of them. Unfortunately, the chemistry keeps building, and Oliver proposes a very simple solution, which is, what if we just do this once to bang it out of our system?
The best.
We all know that is a absolute crackerjack romance plot, and it never, ever works. And then these two have to figure out how they are going to deal with the fact that this chemistry that they're feeling is not just in the lab.
All right. So if you would like to check out this age gap romance where she's older, there's a secret past and he falls first, and also nerdy characters who are playing some tabletop games together and other kinds of games, then check out Conspiracies and Chemistry. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Michelle McCraw for sponsoring this week's episode.
Okay, I want to talk about Emmy Chandler's Prison Planet series, which I've talked about before, but I want to talk about one specifically.
Okay.
Because obviously, when you're on a prison planet, it is very difficult to run anywhere because you are on a prison planet. But I want to talk about Hunter, which is the second book in the series, and is basically, so the premise here is it's like sexy Hunger Games. Okay, so there are two ways that you...
Wait, no, I have to really think about that for a minute. Let's just give everybody a chance.
Just like sit with it. Imagine.
Sexy Hunger Games. It's fine.
Sexy Hunger Games. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready now.
All right, so we have Callum. So here's the deal. When you get sent to this prison planet, there's no coming off of this prison. There is coming, but there's no coming off of this prison planet.
All in, Sarah, and I like that about you.
This is why they're just getting what they paid for here. So
this podcast is free, everyone.
So, okay. So, if you are, it's a little gendered, everybody. It's a prison planet. What do you want from me? So, if you are a man, you are set to be basically like, this is a death sentence, and there's like a part of the planet that's like basically Hunger Games. Like you can, or it's like, what's that movie or the book from when we were younger? It's like the greatest.
I need more information from you.
It's like where they hunt people. It doesn't matter.
I'm all The Most Dangerous Game.
The
But no.
Most Dangerous Game. That's it. That's the one.
I was
Thank
actually
you.
like, she can't possibly mean The Most Dangerous Game. It's a great short story. I'm going to put it in show notes. If you've never read it, read this fucking
really
short story.
Is.
It's a banger.
It's terrific.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was gonna say Eric take all that out, but
No,
everybody now Eric doesn't take things out anymore. Everybody,
just
that's not
stirs.
true. Actually,
Tilting at windmills.
he's just ungovernable, is what I've discovered. Like he ultimately is the decider.
Sure.
Is how this has worked out.
Sure.
Because ultimately he is the decider.
It's fine.
And so people are like, does Eric take anything out? Yes.
Yes.
He takes a lot of shit out, you guys.
But when we're silly, he just leaves
But
it in.
rarely the things we ask him to take out.
He's like, that all was boring. I took all that out. The part where you made a big dumb mistake and said, take it out, I left that in. It's okay. It's fine.
Anyway, so here's the deal. So if you are a man on this prison planet, ultimately you get sent to like Sector 2 or whatever. And in Sector 2, like somebody wealthy gets to come and hunt you. And that's just how it is. And so it's like the question is like, how long will it take before you get offed? And then, but if you're a woman, it's arguably much worse, which is you would basically become like a sex, like just a body for like cleaning and sex. And so, our main character, the heroine, Macy, she is selectively like she's selectively silent. She like refuses to speak. She arrives on the prison planet and like won't interact with anybody. She gets like delivered to a patron and murders him, like because he deserves it. And what ends up happening is like nobody really knows what to do with her. And it becomes clear that this very wealthy man who is coming to hunt a man in Sector 2 discovers that his brother was murdered by Macy. And so he basically pays extra to have Macy thrown into the enclosure so he can hunt her also. So she gets into this enclosure and there's Callum, who's been like, this is basically his time. Like his number's up. He's the prey. And the two of them together have to survive the being hunted and all the like booby traps that are set around this enclosure. And it is really stressful because you're sort of like, well, how will this ever sort itself out? Because they are stuck on this planet, in this place, like they're being filmed. There are these like robot dogs that are like vicious and like constantly after them to like push them toward, as soon as it starts to become clear that like they're winning the hunt, like there's like a whole layer of traps that get set that like push them toward being caught or being killed. And at the same, so they are like super sexy. They can't, if your kink is like that Ruby Dixon, like they don't understand each other.
Sure.
They speak different languages. Macy basically doesn't speak for much of the beginning of this book. But here's to your point about like, she has a skill that like he is Jen, like he is huge. Like, the idea, like
Fine.
this man is unbeatable because he's like
Sure.
a fucking dinosaur. He's like a T-Rex person. I mean, long arms, but you know what I mean.
He's Reacher, but on Prison Planet.
Exactly. But she of course, like she is not. She is like, she seems like very weak and frail.
Yeah.
She's a tech genius though. So
See?
like
There you go.
these robot dogs, which are programmed to like attack and kill, she like gets hold of one and like tweaks it so that it's not dangerous to them at all.
Perfect.
And like it listens to her instead. And he's like, and like all of a sudden she unlocks like a whole layer of like power for them that he could not have done.
Sure. Right. Because he's just like muscle. I'm all, yeah.
Because he's just like pure adrenaline. He's pure testosterone and like, I want to fuck.
Fine. That does sound nice.
Anyway, you guys, it's like, this is a it's a tough one. Like Emmy Chandler does not pull punches. Like this is not going to be an easy ride for you, but it will be a very fun one for you. If this sounds at all like something you'd be into, I can promise you're going to have a great time. So that's Emmy Chandler's Hunter. And you don't have to read these books in order. Although if you read the first one first, you'll get a little of Macy's backstory.
Okay, so I also read a handful of like Harlequin intrigues and Harlequin romantic suspense. And I want to say two of them I talked about on the spring one, but then another one was recommended to me by Susie from the Discord because I was like, it's actually really funny. You know, we did that whole category episode and she's like, I'm going to just read a bunch of these and they're great. And you know what? They fucking are great. If you're just like, I want a pure shot of like adrenaline. So I read 3 of these. So the first one I'm going to talk about is a Harlequin romantic suspense called Stranded by Jennifer D. Bokel. And this is apparently book 4 out of 5 of a series called Texas Law. Fine. And what happens here is, and I was really into this, is so it starts off with Ava and Brett on a date, like a blind date. Someone has set them up and they work at the same hospital. And Ava, they go back to his place. They have sex. It's fucking great. They have an awesome one night stand. She's really into him, but she also has a huge amount of like family issues, kind of like really that are stressing her out. And the big one is that her grandmother, she has a sister and her sister has like 3 kids and is like, her house is, you know, totally full, but their grandmother is going to need care and she's not going to want to go into like, you know, assisted living or whatever. And so Ava realizes like chances are really good I'm going to have to maybe bring her home with me and take care of her. So Brett, like the next morning is kind of like, can we see each other again? And she's like, I don't think we can. Like, and I think they do it via text, right? She's already left. And he's like, I'd like to see you again. And she's like, I think it just has to be a one-time thing. All right, fine. Later that afternoon, he's an air ambulance pilot, Sarah, and they are transporting a serial killer from the hospital.
It's Con Air.
It's
Con Air.
Only they're transporting the serial killer to essentially a different hospital that is going to be near a prison or something, whatever. And she is one of the few nurses who is qualified to be on the flight because she also was like in the Air Force or something. So she's like, you know, you've been reassigned to fly in the air ambulance today. And she gets there and there's Brett. And she's like, oh, awkward a little bit because we just banged it out last night. And there's a couple other people on the flight. And what happens, Sarah, but they are like, it's like a 45-minute helicopter ride. A huge storm comes up out of nowhere. They crash.
Oh my goodness.
It's really dramatic. Everyone else on the flight dies except Brett and Ava are sort of thrown free. And then the serial killer and essentially the like Texas Ranger. And the serial killer like gets free, kills the ranger, takes his clothes, right? And is going to like sort of, you know, make his own way. But Ava and Brett manage to take like the first aid kit and some food. And then like a flash flood, like, I mean, it is like gosh. Really dramatic, right? Shit happens. Yeah. I was literally like, holy shit. And then like, you're like, okay, they crashed. And you're like, oh, now there's a flash flood. And oh, now these things. And so they are on the run. And what they're trying to do is walk the like however long it is to this town they were trying to go to, which the reason Ava agreed to on this flight, I should say, is this is like the hospital where her grandmother is. So she's like, look, if I take this flight, I'll be able to see my grandma. So the two of them are sort of, you know, trying to get back there, but the serial killer needs something in the medical bag. And so he sees them and he is essentially starting to follow them. So it's basically like he's stalking them as they're trying to survive the helicopter crash in the wild of Texas. And it is a terrific read. It was really fun. And like I said, super suspenseful. Really delivered there on the romantic suspense of the suspense part. So that's Stranded by Jennifer D. Bokel.
All right, I'm going to go to historical.
Okay.
I'm going to go to The Harpy and the Dragon by Marie Lipscomb. which I just read last night, and I had a great time with this one. So, okay, so we know Marie. You may know Marie Lipscomb. A few years ago, she wrote a series called The Hearts of Black Mirror, and it was historical, and all the characters, the hero and heroine, were both plus sized, and it was like like a champion and like
Sure, those were great.
The first one I think was called The Champion's Heart. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because this is the fourth book in the 4-book series. The first 3 books all track the same couple. This one is a separate couple. But in those first 3 books, there's like a baddie who ultimately in the 3rd book, I think in the series, like stabs the heroine, who is like a noble woman in this like sort of medieval world. And he stabs her and he's caught and he's sent to prison. And you need to know that in order for the setup of this book to work for you. So, but in The Harpy and the Dragon, what happens is that the hero, whose name is Henry, is the anti-hero from those earlier books. Like he is the one who did the stabbing. And now he has been in prison for 10 years.
Oh boy.
He has been alone in a cell, untouched.
That's bad.
For 10 years.
Not good, everybody.
Is it bad? Is it bad, Jen?
It is bad, Sarah.
I mean, in theory.
If you are a real person, that would be very bad, everybody.
Yes, but he's not. He's a romance hero. And so this is
You're
romance
like so suffering.
prison.
Yeah, sure. Fine.
Okay. So what happens is Honora, our heroine, has just witnessed a sort of abusive nobleman like abuse one of his servants. And in response, she has cracked him over the head. And this nobleman was basically like, fuck this. She goes to prison. So she gets thrown down into this like dungeon-y thing, into a cell across from our hero, who we meet, Jen, facing away from her. Massive man,
sure,
covered in filth, facing away from her because he can't look at her, right? So then he turns around and then they have this like very sexy sort of bantery thing where ultimately there's this great moment where he's like, I think you wouldn't be so bold with me if we weren't both in cells. And she's like, well, but we are. And then a perfect example, the like prison guard or whatever comes down to like, and they're treated very poorly in this prison, but like it's only like a chapter. And the prison guard comes down and is standing there and like haunting the hero, and Honora just like clubs him over the head with a chamber pot, knocks him out cold, and Henry steals the keys to the cell, and boom, they're out. And you think to yourself, it took 10 years for this idiot. This idiot has been sitting in a freaking cell for 10 years.
It wasn't the right time, Sarah.
One woman with a brain in her head.
See, I told you.
Gets them all out.
He was just really sitting with his feelings.
Yeah. And then then it's the two of them. Then they have to escape together. So like there's this great moment where, Jen. Okay, so it's cold, it's winter. Like the way that you discover that it's 10 years after the last book is, she's like, how do you survive down here? It's so cold. Like, how long have you been down here? And he's like, is it midwinter yet? And she says, yeah, it was last week. And he's like, well, then I've been here 10 years. And it's just like freezing cold in this dungeon. And all he has, Jen, is one fur. And she's cold. Mm-hmm. And so what does he do? He gives her this fur.
Amazing.
And it's like, why are we so easy?
I don't know.
Why am I so easy?
That's like a real
this
Julie
man literally
Garwood.
Stabbed the heroine in the last book. And I'm like, meh.
Doesn't matter.
Another great moment, he confesses this to her. He's like, I stabbed, this lady. And she goes, good. All noble people need to be stabbed at some point in their life.
Listen, did I just click and download this book? I did.
Anyway, so what ensues is this like extremely fun on the run kind of thing where these two are just like chaos monsters. They are constantly causing trouble. They're like knocking people out left and right. I love this. The hero is very into the sex.
Sure.
And very happy to be finally back at it. And I really had a delightful time reading this book. And I was reminded that I really, really loved all of these Marie Lipscomb books. And
That's the best feeling when you're like, oh, wait, I forgot about this author. I love them.
It was really so fun. And she hasn't published in a while. And I hope she comes back to it because I had a great time.
Amazing. Perfect. I
so
love
that
it.
is The Harpy and the Dragon. This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Lumi Gummies. Consistent, mellow, and super delicious, Lumi Gummies are specifically designed to make you feel good, not stoned.
Whether you're looking for an end-of-day de-stressor, a midday mood boost, or help getting the best sleep ever, Lumi Gummies has a strain that is right for you. So, like everyone lately, I've been feeling a little stressed out. And so one of the things that I find stressful in my daily life, not like extraordinarily stressful, is just like cooking dinner. And so one of the things that I found can be really helpful is I like these orange cream cookies, the sativa flavor. And this gives me just like an uplifting and energizing feeling that lets me like approach this task, which I honestly hate, and instead feel like totally chill about it.
This is adorable. I love this.
Great. I know. So it just is like a really nice way to like maybe tackle like a task that isn't your favorite and instead just make it like a little groovy and enjoyable.
Amazing. Well, you could cook your own dinner with Lumi Gummies. If you go to lumigummies.com, that's LUMI gummies.com, and use the code FATEDMATES for 30% off your order. Lumi Gummies are available nationwide, and you can again go to Lumi Gummies, LUMIgummies.com, code FATEDMATES for 30% off. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy Lumi Gummies. Don't forget to use the code FATEDMATES. Thanks to Lumi Gummies for sponsoring this week's episode.
My next one is a Harlequin intrigue this time, and I talked about this on the preview episode, and it's called, because it's by Juno Rushton. And Juno Rushton, the first year we made like a best of list, I put one of her romantic suspense books on, and this one is called Wyoming Double Jeopardy.
Didn't you just talk? This comes from
Yes,
I got it.
Yes,
I'm with you.
I just talked about it. It literally just came out.
Wyoming, I remember.
Yeah, because that's not typically my vibe, but Juno Rushton is my vibe. So in this one, and this is, it's really interesting. This one, like the previous one I talked about, like the Stranded one, the kind of, from what I can tell, this is like book 5 of 6, and that one was like 4 or 5, is like there's a killer who's introduced in the first book. And then every single one of the books, like the thing, that killer is sort of like still either at large or is broken, whatever. And so it's like groups of people who are like essentially like impacted by this killer. And then I would assume by the very end of the series, the killer will be taken down. But so this has like a similar, which is, I think, kind of smart, because you're like, what is tying this all together? So in this one, we have, this is book 5 of the Cowboy State Lawman series. And what happens is it starts off with Melanie Merritt. She is an assistant DA in Laramie, Wyoming. And she is from Denver, but she moved, and actually most recently had been in Denver, but like has like a real interesting background. She is like went to Exeter and then Harvard and Yale Law School, and, just really like moved out west, and is like kind of has parents who love her, but also she's kind of feels a little bit abandoned by them. Like they were like wealthy, kind of like globe hopping. Her mom's Indian. Her stepfather is like British, and they go from India to England. You know what I mean? And they like kind of left her boarding school so they could live that life. And they love her, but it's like hard. And so Melanie has left Denver like 3 years ago, moved to Laramie, and we get like the backstory a little later. Picked up Waylon at a bar and was kind of like, I'm interested in you. Can we go do this thing? And he was like, well, I'm eating a burger right now, but seems like a good idea. And it turned into like a couple of years of this like sort of casually seeing each other, but it wasn't casual for Waylon. So the book opens with her getting flowers from Waylon that's basically like, I still want you back. And you're kind of like, who's this guy? Right. Well, then, and so she's like going to throw the flowers away, but then she can't. She like picks them back up and he's a good guy and, you know, whatever. So then then she's like heading to her car. She hears things. She like trusts her instincts and tries to like turn and run, but she's like attacked in the parking lot. And then she like, you know, I mean, it's again, like starts off like really high intense scene. She like gets away from the guy. She like, you know, like it's a fight and she's like fighting for her life and she manages to get away from him. And the sheriff shows up and then Waylon, who works for the Laramie Police Department, shows up. And it turns out that she had put away a guy back in Denver who's a serial killer who, without anybody telling her, had been released from like the Supermax prison on like a technicality. And nobody from Denver thought to call her. And so she goes back to Denver and is like, what's going on? How I know it was him for like reasons, right? He left his like sort of calling card. And the two of them then, so it's like the kind of on the run part is like, you know, they leave Laramie, they go to Denver, they are trying to investigate, they're driving back to Laramie, like someone runs them off the road, right? Like, so it's really intense. And the thing that's like really interesting about this book is like, she knows or thinks she knows who it is, right? She's like, it is for sure the serial killer guy. And Waylon believes her, and he's basically like, my job is to keep you alive because I'm in love with you.
Nice.
And so in the course of like trying to get away from this guy and figure out like exactly what's going on, they suspect now like, hey, maybe he's working with someone. Is there a copycat, right? Like that kind of thing. They have finally a talk about like sort of the future of their relationship, and they have some great sex and they figure it out. But like at the end, you know, the killer like ends up kidnapping her and like Waylon has to save her and it's all great. So I ended up really loving it and was kind of like, Juno Rushton, you know the job. So that's Wyoming Double Jeopardy.
Nice.
It's great.
Well, you are talking about Wyoming, so I am going to talk about Kentucky.
Sure. They're the same.
They go together.
They're both states.
They are, in fact, both states. But also, like, there's a little bit of a cowboy vibe to this one that I'm talking about. So I want to talk about Bourbon and Lies by Victoria Wilder. And I just want to shout out Montgomery and Taggart booksellers because when I was in there, I was talking to Elizabeth, who owns Montgomery and Taggart, and I said, recommend me a book that recommend me something. And she pushed Bourbon and Lies into my hands.
The great cover.
And it's got a great cover. And she was like, this is written by a local author, and I really liked it.
Before you talk about the local author, can I tell you, Little Romance is graduating from college, everybody, next month. And our dinner reservations, like the night before, are in Chester, Connecticut. And he's like, it's my favorite town around here. And I was like, yeah, me too. And he's like, what are you talking about?
And me too.
I was like, Sarah and I love it there. And he was like, you guys are fucking weirdos. But anyway, it was just really funny. So,
well, you have to report back on that dinner because like it's the weirdest little small town. I love it. I mean, it's the sweetest little small town, but I can't figure out why it exists.
Okay,
or how it continues to survive.
For us to go to dinner and for you to get cool books from
but apparently
Montgomery and Taggart.
All the kids from college head over there in their free time, so that's how it survives. Okay, listen, but I have to tell you something. On the back cover, I'm going to tell you all about this book, but I think it's important that I read the first line of the back cover to you. In Fiasco, Kentucky, there's only one rule. Never fall for a fox brother.
I love it already.
So listen, name is destiny here. And Grant Fox is hot and broken, tortured. He's a former cop whose like the love of his life died in his arms. in a terrible, terrible tragedy. And then he was like, I can't do this anymore.
I
So
cannot
he's not a
love,
cop anymore.
and I
Good
can't
for
be a
everybody.
cop. Yeah, sure.
So he now lives in Fiasco, Kentucky with his brothers who all have like,
Do they have names like man?
there's like
My name
Grizz. One of them's name is Grizz. One of them's name is Ace. And I'm like, I don't hate it. Listen, I don't hate any of this. Not one. Every one of them can get any. Like literally, would look you dead in the eye, and boom, your clothes fall off. Like this is exactly how
They're the Fox brothers, Sarah.
I mean, of course, your clothes fall off. I don't know what the problem is. Okay, but here's the truth, you guys. All right, here's another one of my favorite microtropes. Might be my favorite microtrope.
Okay.
I love it when a hero is celibate.
Oh, okay.
I don't love it when he's a virgin, but
No,
I do
that's not
love
for
it
me.
when he hasn't
Sure.
done it for a long time. So this guy, Grant, I mean, listen, he's been through it. His love died in his arms, and he hasn't had sex ever since.
Sure.
And
Terrible.
it's terrible for him, but good for us. Good for me, at least. So anyway, but more importantly, there is a plot to this book, and I'll tell you about it. Okay, so but my point is, so they live in Kentucky where they all make bourbon because that's what you do. So here's the deal. The heroine of this book, whose name is Lainey, has been through it. She got herself wrapped up in, she's an event planner who like accidentally got herself wrapped up in a killing situation where she rescues a woman and witnesses a crime that she should not have witnessed. And she immediately sort of falls in with this detective who kind of immediately, a woman detective who I assume at some point becomes a heroine in this series, and who kind of notices instantly that like something is fishy about like all of the situation that Lainey was in, and sends her into like witness protection, but like secret, like not, she's off the grid witness protection. Like not everybody knows that she exists in witness protection. So this woman is looking, the like woman who helps her, sends her to the Fox brothers because she knows like these other one of these other hot brothers. And she's basically like, I'm sending this woman to live on your land or to live near you. And I just need you to keep an eye out for her. Well, of course, immediately Grant is like, there's something up with this woman. Like she has secrets.
Yeah.
And like she has basically like the book begins and the very beginning of the book, is this great moment where like Lainey's being told like how to witness protection. And like the first line of the book in her POV is only lie like if you have to. Right. And so she ends up kind of realizing that she has to keep herself secret. And she like creates a kind of like elaborate identity that like she shouldn't, it is not like a joke in the book, but she's just like kind of a mess about like what her identity is, where she comes from. She comes from New York City, but she like claims she's come from Chicago. And Grant instantly is like, there's no way, not Chicago. She comes from Colorado. And Grant's like, there's no way this woman is a Coloradan. Like she is.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing about this that is true. And so, but what ends up happening is she kind of lives on this land, on this like bourbon distilleries land in Fiasco. And like, it is a really interesting kind of like quiet example of on the run because they are still like, she is here in this town, in this small town, like really like falling for, the kids in the town, like everybody sort of, she really becomes like kind of liked in this town. And then on top of it, there's this like back and forth between her and Grant where he is like instantly drawn to her because she's so beautiful. Like there's everything. And like, there's this great moment where like he sees his dog decides that the dog really likes her.
Yeah.
And so he goes to like get the dog one night because the dog won't leave the porch. Real like
it.
old school Julie Garland style, right?
Yeah, that's good stuff, right?
And he goes to get the dog and like the dog won't move. And then she comes out, the heroine comes out and Lainey and onto the porch, and she's wearing like a tank top, no bra, and like tight shorts. And he's like, sorry to bother you. I just came to get my dog, you know? And he's been like doing something and he's like bleeding. And she's like, you're bleeding. And he's like, I don't want to, you know, you don't have to worry about it. Like, it's man blood. And then he like goes back to his like house, his cabin, like on the land, right? And like immediately like takes off his clothes and starts to like jerk off because he's obsessed with this woman and she's so beautiful. And then like when he's done and he's like, he's a noisy, like he like, yeah, he's noisy about it. And when he's done, he walks out onto like the porch, like, I don't know, get fresh air. And there's a box of Band-Aids like sitting on the porch. And he's like, oh my God, she like came and left these Band-Aids while I was jerking off in my house. And then of course it cuts to her and she's like, holy shit, he was jerking off in his house.
I am not mad about any of this. It's amazing. Yeah.
I deeply enjoyed this because it was like sort of a like very kind of slow, like sleepy, there's something very like heady about this book, and like a real sense of like we're just waiting. We're all in stasis while we're waiting for this like big shoe to drop.
Yeah, right. I love that feeling. Yeah.
And so it was like really this lovely, like they got to know each other. They fell for each other. They really wanted each other, but like you knew.
Yeah.
The clock was ticking. And at some point, like somebody was going to come and like fuck shit up. And it does happen.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I really enjoyed it. I like this book a lot.
Great.
It's called Bourbon and Lies by Victoria Wilder. And thanks to Elizabeth at Montgomery Taggart for recommending it to me.
Okay. So how many more do you have?
I could have two.
Oh, okay. Well,
I could have one.
I have one more.
Okay. Then I will have one.
Okay. So I am going to talk about, this is another one you're going to have to pre-order because it doesn't come out till the end of May, but is awesome. And I talked about it also on the preview episode. I am my own discoverability buddy, Sarah. So this one is called Hunted in Italy by Delaney Diamond. This is a Harlequin romantic suspense. And you listen, everybody, I need you to trust me and pre-order this book. It is $5. Okay. And here's what happens. So it starts off with Zaire Nichols in Italy. She's an American. She is a polyglot. She speaks like 5 languages. And she is there as an interpreter, just like at a business. And she is kind of like really excited about living in Rome, but also like not like a wild and crazy party girl, unlike her roommate Josie. So the sort of it starts off with Josie essentially calling. She's been out the night before with like a hot Italian, and Will Zaire, they're both interpreters for the same company. Will Zaire like essentially take the job she was supposed to take today. So Zaire trots off to like the job and goes to get our lunch in the cafeteria or whatever, and overhears some voices talking about a plan to plant a bomb at an American embassy. And so she like manages to record part of it and is like kind of freaked out and is like, I gotta get out of here. Right. But she ends up then like on the street, like someone almost tries to run her over. Right. Like, so she's like really in danger. And so she flees to the American embassy. And there, what happens is they essentially at first she's like, basically like, I have a recording. They're like, great, give us to us. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that because I need you to get me back to the United States. And the way that you're going to do that is by me holding this over your head. Like, this is the Black woman who does not trust essentially the people to take care of her. And she's like, this is the best. Like, this is my insurance. This is going to get me back, right? I'm an American citizen, but I don't really believe that you'll take care of me if I give this to you. You'll just send me back out and tell me it's fine. So in the meantime, Buck Swanson, ex-Navy SEAL and CIA Black Ops agent, has been essentially, activated to come and get her. right? So he's in DC. His boss wakes him up and is like, go get her. And he's like, okay, I'll do that. But when he gets to the embassy, they essentially have her handcuffed to the table. And listen, this book, remember we were talking about like old school tropes? You know, the minute he sees her picture, he feels something. He's like, what's going on? I'm feeling a feeling. I'm just looking at a picture. And he's outraged. She's been, you know, handcuffed. And Sarah, this is when I really came online. So they essentially, her roommate has been found dead. And now they suspect that she is the murderer. And he was basically like, you idiots, what kind of fucking idiot would go kill their roommate and then show up at the American embassy? And like with the story, right? Like he's like, clearly people are after her. So he is like, uncuff this woman. No, Sarah. The scream I scrumped when this happened. So he sits down and he puts his hand on her fucking wrist and he's like, I'm going to ask you some questions. Sarah, this man is a human lie detector.
My favorite.
I was like,
my
what?
My favorite microtrope.
But I was like, what is happening? And she's like, basically, like, what's happening? And he's like, well, I'm just going to try and tell if you're telling the truth by listening to whether your heartbeat is racing. And I was like, okay, I am in love with this book already.
My God.
And so in it, like, I feel like a lot of the, so then, you know, he's like, we're going to go back to your apartment and get your things. This is still, you guys, I'm not really giving a lot away. This is still like the first 20% of the book, right? We're going to go get your things. But as, you know, when they have a convoy of trucks, like, don't worry, I'm here to keep you safe. And they get in the, you know, to the apartment and then like there's an explosion out on the street. Someone has attacked the convoy and blown up one of the cars. And so he's like, don't worry about it. Sarah makes a rope out of the bed sheets and is like, we're going to go out the window. And she's like, excuse me, we are not going to go out the fucking window. What are you talking about? And he's like, this is our only chance. We can't go out the main front door. So, you know,
Perfect.
He's like, I got you or whatever. So they go out the window and then they're on the street and they're running. And then this is the part that's really funny. He like sees the guy with the motorcycle and he's like, we're going to need your motorcycle. And of course, this guy's Italian. He doesn't speak English. And she's like, wait, I'm an interpreter. So she says to him, like, you know, like, sir, we're going to have to take your, you know, motorcycle in Italian. And the guy's like, bah, 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 bah. And, you know, Buck, like, you know, takes him off the motorcycle. And I was like, whatever is happening right now, it's all the things I love in a book. And it's just, again, like really fun. And I think the plotting is really smart. Like her just saying, I have a recording really isn't enough, right? Like once there's somebody who's dead and she's in danger and, you know, so they're on the run and the whole thing is like they have to stay ahead of the people in pursuit of them and at the same time, like prevent this deadly attack, right? There has been these attacks happening and she doesn't know which embassy it is, you know, and at one point he's like, do you know how many embassies there are? And she's like, 168. Great. And so they have to figure out like which one it is using like the small clue she has about who she might have been heard talking and the people after her. So again, this doesn't come out till the end of May. Please pre-order. It is a really fun ride. And that is Hunted Through Italy by Delaney Diamond.
I'm going to talk about another historical. I'm going to talk about Dalliances and Devotion by Felicia Grossman. And this one is one of her Pinkerton books, which means, so the heroine of this book, this is listen, Felicia's so good at like,
yeah,
her heroines are so unique and like often like unseen in historicals. And so Amalia, the heroine, has been divorced twice. And she is a beauty columnist. But she sort of masquerades. It's a little like the Scarlet Pimpernel because she like masquerades as this kind of like vapid like beauty columnist who like only cares about like dresses and hair and like being beautiful. And the reality is that she has divorced twice, and she is keenly aware of divorce as a tool for women's freedom.
Yeah.
And so she is raising money and like she's using her fortune to help women who cannot get divorces, who don't have the money to get divorces and don't have the power to get divorces, to do that.
Amazing.
And set themselves free. In order to do this, however, she has to get back to Delaware where the Truitt family fortune is being divided, and she needs access to that money. But when she sort of makes this plan, it becomes very clear that like someone is out to prevent her from getting there. So the question is, and like it sort of has like a stalkery vibe. Like there's definitely someone out to get her. And is it to get her before she gets to the money, or is it like to get her in general? Like there's sort of this question mark. Either way, her family is like, fuck this. You are not traveling alone. Like you are receiving death threats. There is no way that this is happening. So she and David Ziskin, who is a Pinkerton now, and the Pinkertons are like a private investigation, a private firm. This is real. This is real American history. They are a private firm of like investigators, bodyguards, protectors, whatever. Sure. You can hire a Pinkerton to like travel with you.
Sure. Why not?
Here's the thing though. David's not just any Pinkerton. David is a boy, a man, a real man, a man who, Amalia and David have known each other for a very long time. And that is because David was very good friends with Amalia's brother, who is now dead. And so there's this kind of like nice, like there's this lovely kind of grief that the two of them share, but have never really like addressed. It comes out that David and Amalia like were deeply in love like ages ago, and like it didn't work. And then now she's twice divorced. And so there are these kind of big questions about childhood, about like long-term love, about unrequited love, about like missed connections. This is real like beautiful second chance romance, but it's also because they are in like such tight proximity to each other because they're traveling, obviously, across the country so that she can get to her inheritance. But also like he is in a constant state of vigilance to make sure that she is being protected.
Yeah. Love it.
Right. And then on top of it, it is making him crazy because he is so close to this woman who he wants so, so badly. But she's rejected him. She broke his heart. And now and he is also like sort of fallen prey to this idea that like she's like turned into something like vapid and fake, like flat, which of course she hasn't, because she has this like really like rich plan for her life, her money, the future, like how she can change the world. This is, especially interesting. In all of Fleish's books cover, tackle issues of Jewishness in history. So like there's this really rich layer of Jewish American history in the late 19th century. And it's just it's really a fun book. It's like part road trip, part on the run, part romantic suspense.
You got a Pinkerton, though. You got a Pinkerton with you. Something's going to happen.
I know. They're so dreamy, those Pinkerton men. Anyway, and I mean, David is he's a delight. He just is he's like, who are you? I got to save you.
Amazing.
It's great. It's terrific. And then there's it's chaotic, the trip back, and it's very fun. So you're going to love this one if you love a historical. This one's for you. Dalliances and Devotion by Felicia Grossman.
So fun.
And then I just want to name check. I forgot to say this, but there's also, we didn't really talk about On the Run, like from yourself, like a kind of softer On the Run. And so I just want to say, we've talked about this book before, so I'm just going to name it, but Kiss the Girl by Zoraida Cordova is a great example of like how you can do on the run from family identity life with the threat of discovery and sort of a thread of mystery, but without it being like
life or death. Yeah, exactly.
And somebody's threatening to kill you. And that is a rock star who is running from like her father, who wants to send her off to have like a, next album, fresh career as a solo artist. And she's like, I don't think I want this. And so she like sort of sneaks off with a rogue
right.
of,
Like
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't really think about those. I really did think, one of the things I ended up thinking a lot about for me was like, I don't really like true crime because it's just not for me really. But like these books, I think if you are a true crime reader, like a lot of these romantic suspense books probably would like, you know what I mean? Like I was really like, oh yeah, they're on the run from a serial killer. And it just feels really like the whole idea of like the existential danger that like of like really like you're in a lot of these, it's like you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, right? Or you're doing your job. One of the things I really liked a lot of, I didn't mention it, but in the Wyoming Double Jeopardy book is when Waylon is finally like, why did we break up? I'm in love with you.
Mm-hmm.
And she was kind of like, well, I'm going to be the DA and you're a cop and it's going to really compromise all my cases. And he was kind of like, so kind of like a little bit, so what? But then when she explained it to him, he really had to think like, she's right. And it's going to impact her more than me because she's a woman and it's going to, right, like essentially lead everyone to think that she like slept her way to the top or that I'm like feeding her easy cases. And I don't want to like spoil exactly what happens, but he's not just like, it's no big deal. He takes it really seriously. And I thought it was really great to sort of have her pride, the reason be like she doesn't want to like rely on him. So I really think like that's a big part of it too, is like, it can't just be like, I'm putting all my problems in your lap. I think that's why the competency thing is so important.
Yeah. We also didn't talk about like the level of gentleness that is often a piece of these romances, especially if in the situation where like, I'm again heteronormatively, like when a woman is on the run and the hero sort of is assisting her. I didn't have this on my list, but as you were just talking, I was thinking about Adriana Anders's Under Her Skin, which is, you guys check your content warnings on this. Like this is a brutal read in a lot of ways. The heroine is on the run from an absolutely sadistic ex-husband. But what's interesting about this is like she is not just on the run, she is flat out in hiding.
Yeah.
Hoping that her ex-husband will never find her.
Yeah.
And of course, like when this is the tee up, we know again, it's that sort of like dread that's coming. And she has this secret she doesn't want to tell this new man who she's like landed in this town, and like the man who lives like next door, Ivan, is he's like a gentle giant, like, and he's so careful with her because he knows like before he's even had a chance to touch her, he knows like there is something really, really like wrecked about this woman.
Yeah.
And he understands that like what she needs is not just protection, but also like care and like gentle, kind love. And Adriana Anders, she doesn't miss for me.
Well, and it's kind of like we could have talked about Whiteout. I feel like, this is a woman who really understands like On the Run at a very deep level.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like the books where it's like primal play and they play and like, right, it's like On the Run is kink, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of ways in which like she does. I was like, I was going to really talk about Whiteout because we've talked about it a million times, but I think you're right that she's someone who is like interested at a very deep level about what that means.
Yeah. That is a solid TBR we delivered.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe you don't know this, but at the end of every episode, when you can also head over to BookBub, where all of the books that we talk about are listed. So you can follow them on BookBub and then get an email.
Right, if one of these books is released or on sale.
Exactly. So follow Fated Mates on BookBub, and links in the show notes, obviously. And then you get an email when any of these are down priced. You can also now follow us on pagebound.co. And all these books will be there as well in a little block, I think. And follow us there anyway, and like take the Fated Mates quest. I love that. Anyway, I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop. We are Fated Mates. You can find us every Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us online where there is a full list of the books that we read at fatedmates.net. Just click on show notes. You'll see everything there, along with other things like links to The Most Dangerous Game and other things that we talked about this week. Also, you can find us on Threads, on Blue Sky, and on Instagram still, but that's subject to change whenever our whims, whenever the wind blows through. And what else? Don't forget to take the survey, fatedmates.net/survey. We want to hear your thoughts.
Check out the collections department and have a great week.
Yeah. If you are on the run, we hope that it's with somebody who is
real hot and knows how to make a rope out of bed sheets. I don't know what else to tell you.